Reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi-lila, chapter 13, the advent of Lord Caitanya. Text number 96. 96. Haribali narigana dei hula huli. Haribali narigana dei hula huli. Swarge vadyan nritya kare deva kutuhali. Swarge vadyan nritya kare deva kutuhali. Haribali narigana dei hula huli. Swarge vadyan nritya kare deva kutuhali. Haribali. By saying the word Hari. Narigana. All the ladies. They chanting. Hula huli. The sound of hula huli. You know that sound? Can you do it? You have to cover your mouth. It's the movement of the tongue. So it's like uludwani, they call it uludwani. So it's the vibrating of the tongue. So that's the way that the ladies glorify the Lord, or when there's something auspicious, they do the uludwani. In Mayapur in India, but in Mayapur particularly, it's very common. So you hear it in all the kirtans. They go, so it's the hula huli, the sound of hula huli. Swarge, in the heavenly planets. Bhadyaniditya, music and dance. Kare, do. Deva, demigods. Kutuhali, curious. Translation. While all the ladies vibrated the holy names of Hari on earth, in the heavenly planets, dancing and music were going on. For the demigods were very curious. Next verse. 97. Prashana hailada siddhik prashana nadi jala stavara jangama hailananda vivala. In this atmosphere, all the 10 directions became jubilant, as did the waves of the rivers. Moreover, all beings, moving and non-moving, were overwhelmed with transcendental bliss. Next verse, text 98. Nadiya udaya giri purna chandra gaura hari kripa kari haila udaya pappatama hailanasha trijagatara ulasha jagadvari hari dhvani haya. Thus, by his causeless mercy, the full moon, Gaura Hari, rose in the district of Nadia, which is compared to Udayagiri, in the south, where the sun first becomes visible. His rising in the sky dissipated the darkness of sinful life, and thus the 3 worlds became joyful and chanting the holy name of the Lord. Next verse. Sei kaleni jayaya utiya advaita raja nritya kare anandita mane haridasa la sange hunkara kirtaniya range kene nache kehe nahi jane. Translation. At that time, Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, in his own house of Achantipur, was dancing in a pleasing mood, taking Haridas Thakur with him. He danced and loudly chanted Hare Krishna. But why they were dancing, no one could understand. Purport. It is understood that Advaita Prabhu at that time was in his own paternal house at Shantipur. Haridas Thakur frequently used to meet him. Coincidentally, therefore, he was also there. And upon the birth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, both of them immediately began to dance. But no one in Shantipur could understand why those two saintly persons were dancing. Shall we continue? Okay, let's look at that. Let me see how we go. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmiditam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared, and everything becomes blissful, everything becomes ecstatic. Everyone glorifies the Lord, directly or indirectly. There were people, according to the descriptions of Chaitanya Caritamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, that somehow, even though they may not have been Hindus, they were Mohammedans, sometimes mocking, right? Prabhu was reading yesterday, mocking the Hindus, that they were chanting the names of Hari. They were also chanting the names of Hari. They were just repeating like that. And everyone felt the spiritual presence of the Lord. Something important was happening. And he appeared in that place of Yoga Pit. Yoga Pit means the point of connection. Like sometimes you need to plug your whatever, computer or something. So you need that plug. So that's the Yoga Pit. The moment that the Lord descends at that place, that's called Yoga Pit. So the Lord appears at the Yoga Pit, and everyone became ecstatic. So it is described here how the ladies, how even the river, did you notice that? The waves of the river became blissful. Right? So in Krishna consciousness, everything becomes auspicious. Right? So a question would be, why sometimes things don't appear auspicious, rather the opposite? Anyway, we leave that to the end. Advaita Acharya, particularly as we understand from the description, is the cause of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descending. He was worshipping the Lord and calling out. He could see Advaita Acharya is a joint incarnation, mixed incarnation of Mahavishnu and Lord Shiva, Sada Shiva, that is. Sada means white. Without getting into the details, but once upon a time, at some point they had this realization that the Lord will come and many wonderful things will happen, and they embraced. Right? So when they embraced that, you may say, form of them together, it's called Advaita. So he appears as Advaita Acharya. And he's the one who could see what will happen in this age and how people will be so degraded, godless of civilization, Prabhupada used to call it, and how people will suffer despite technological advancement or economic development. People are suffering like anything. We don't see it, nice houses, nice cars, but we don't see it. In my job, I get calls every day from people that are working, some of them quite well placed in their companies with high salaries, properties, families, etc. But they are miserable. They are miserable. And they don't know why they are miserable. And, psychiatrists and others give them different labels and diagnoses. Functional depression, this, that, and the other. ADHD symptoms and blah, blah, blah. But the reason is because they don't have Krishna. And we have the duty to give them to them. So, Advaita Acharya could see that. So he started calling the Lord. He started worshipping. Was it a Nishinha Shila, right? Nishinha Shila he was worshipping, correct? He was worshipping in Narashinha Shila with Ganges water and Tulsi leaves. And eventually the Lord came. So, as we were discussing a few weeks ago, the point was the Lord appears and then what? What do we do with that? Now, why does the Lord appear? Prabhu was mentioning yesterday that the Lord comes for two reasons. One is to give, pradayati. Krishna prema pradayati. Daya means to give. Just, I give to someone lower, like that. Someone who doesn't have. Whether it's knowledge, food, money, or something like that. But in this case, what it's given, it's prema, Krishna prema, pradayati. The mission that Kambakana Maharaj was referring to. So that's one reason. He came to give. What's the other reason? Prabhu was saying yesterday also. But what is the other reason that he comes for? I mean, that's the first reason. But he comes for an internal reason, or a hidden reason. Right? And that hidden reason was? Taste the love of Godhead. Taste the love of Godhead. Yeah. To experience the sentiment that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna. To feel. Right? So that is considered the highest form of devotion. In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 10, we find the Chaturshloki. Chaturshloki are the 4 verses which are considered the essence of Krishna's teachings in the Gita. Chaturshloki. And we mentioned them before. And in those verses, the devotees are described. And basically, the description is what the devotees feel. What do the devotees think? Madchita, madgata prana. That their consciousness, the chitta, it's mad. I am their thinking, their life. Madgata prana. Prana means, what does prana means? Prana, like you, pranam. Prana. Prana means life. Prana means life. Prana is the reason for which you take food, or you drink water, or you breathe. Prana is there. It's life. If you don't breathe, if you don't eat, if you don't drink water, you die. The body dies. So prana means what we find in those elements, and then continue to give us life. So madgata prana. Madgata prana means, go and tell them to control that, please. Just tell them. Madgata prana. So Krishna explains that I am their life and soul. And then he gives 3.5 verses about that. So, and then in chapter 12, I believe are the 8 last verses, Krishna explains those devotees who are dear to him. First he says, these devotees, and gives the descriptions, are dear. And then he says, and then he gives another set of verses and descriptions, and he says, these are more dear. And then at the end, the very last verse, he says, they are very, very dear. So you can see it's a progression, right, of the devotees and their feelings for Krishna. And then in chapter 18, so we got chapter 10, chapter 12, chapter 18. In 18, in those 3 verses at the end, 68 to 70, Krishna says something quite interesting. Krishna says that there will be someone, the type of devotee, who will be the most dear. He says it again, right? He says, those devotees will become the most dear, and no one will be more dear to me than him, he says, right? Applies to everyone, him or her. And what kind of devotee is that? The one who? Preaches the teachings of Krishna. He gives three blessings, basically. Pure devotional service is guaranteed. You will come back to me, and you will become the dearest. So we see chapter 10, Chaturshloki, Krishna talks about his devotees and how they are dear to him because he, Krishna, is dear to them. Tesham, he says twice. Tesham evanukam partam, Tesham shatatata yuktanam. Tesham means them. He talks about them. Srila Prabhupada says, I think he writes in one of his purports, but he says often, things have changed, of course, but those who are a little older, remember, men, maybe, we used to carry in our wallets, right? Of course, you carry your cards and whatever else. But what's something that generally you will carry in your wallets? Maybe the ladies in their purses. Well, we carry. I mean, apart from the 80 plus items that you carry, what do you generally carry?
Wallet or bag?
Yeah. Well, what do you have there? Photos. Yeah. Photos, did you say? Yeah. That's what Prabhupada says. Photos of your beloved. Mm-hmm. Right. Nowadays, everything is in the phone, so you don't carry that much, right? I remember for years I used to carry the photos of my children when they were very little. They're pulling their hair, doing this, like that. I carry that photo for a long, long, long time. So every time I open, I will see them there, So, in that same way, the devotees carry Krishna in their heart. And interestingly, Krishna also carries them in his heart. So that's a reciprocation. That's a sentiment. Right? So, Gita ends, Bhagavatam begins, and right from the start practically, in chapter 2, already the topic of bhakti comes up. No, in the first verses, right? It's established, Shushushu, Dakshanat. It's established in the heart. So from the very beginning, bhakti is there. So we were mentioning that Bhagavatam, you can draw or write a B up there, Bhagavatam, that's Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam, and have 3 arrows down and 3 B's under. So in Bhagavatam we learn about what's 1 B stands for. Bhagavan, what's 1 B? The other B is for? Okay, Bhagavatam is up there, and 1 arrow teaches about Bhagavan, that's Krishna. And the other one teaches about Bhaktas, the Bhaktas, and teaches about Bhakti. So it's B, 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 B. Bhagavatam teaches about Bhagavan, teaches about Bhakti, and teaches about those who have Bhakti, the Bhaktas. And that is the representation or the explanation of what Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita in those verses. The concept is given in chapter 9, The examples, bhaktas, are given in chapter 10. The elaboration or gradation of that is given in chapter 12. And he ends saying that basically if you want to be one of those, preach. Simple. Very, very simple. So then all the Bhagavatam, how many verses in the Bhagavatam? 18,000. Yeah. Arguably 18,000. Actually, the number that's less is 16,000, but according to the units it comes to 18,000. But anyway, I want to derail. And then everything is explained there. Mainly, what is the main topic that is explained in the Bhagavatam? And we were mentioning that the titles of the cantos give away that. What is the main curriculum?
Creation.
Creation. Thank you. But parallel to that, what's the main topic? We say the B? Bhakti. It's basically like in a classroom. You know, remember when you were in primary school and you were paying attention to your teacher, he or she, whatever the subject was. And that the subject that day, you know, you have geography, geometry, mathematics, whatever. Right? The subject, we may say, is creation. How this world is created, mainly in the many cantos. But the underlying lesson is bhakti. How can we know about the Lord, His appearance, His manifestation, His creation, etc., but with love? That's the ingredient. I remember when we joined, right? And I don't know your experience, but when I joined, you know, prasadam is so wonderful, isn't it? You can see the before and after. You eat a sandwich or something, a pizza, whatever. But if it's prasadam, it's different. I remember when my Guru Maharaj used to come to visit us in Ecuador, in South America, and there was this soda water. You know, Ecuador has one of these fountains, famous around the world. Somewhere in the mountains, there's these natural springs, right? So the water comes out there, and then they bottle that. It's famous, Witik it's called, right? And bottle, and then they sell it all over the country. You know, like soda water, mineral water. That's the same concept, but it's natural, right? So everybody knows about that water, and everybody drinks it, right? But I remember when he used to come, and they will buy a big 2-liter bottle, and then we give to him. And then I remember the maha that we will get somehow tasted differently. And every one of us was thinking, what is it here? How is it possible? And then we will fight, but you know, we were trying to get the maha. And I remember when he will leave the temple, there will be something left, you know, and then we'll rush to the Witik water, you know, and then we share. I remember even a few drops, it's like, oh, you know. And then I remember that at some point, after he leaves, we go and buy a few 2-liter bottles to, you know, to whatever, you know, think, okay, now we're going to be sad. And we will taste it. It will taste different. Or maybe at that time more surrender or humility, and he made us, you know. So this taste, right? It was said to taste. It comes because Ravindra Sarup Prabhu says our soul gets activated. The soul gets activated by the sound and the association. And who was giving the class? Nishinakavacha Prabhu was giving the class. He was referring to Bhanu Swami and his famous seminars on sound. And he puts together all this research that has been done about sound. That, you know, you put water, you put talc, you put powder of different sorts, you put a plant, and it changes. The vibration changes when the mantras are chanted. It changes. Anyway, because of the spiritual sound, we're able to feel something. That's the idea. That through a spiritual sound, we're able to change our heart. And if you go back to whatever years, months, or decades before coming to Krishna consciousness, remember the things, if it's not too polluting, remember the things that you used to feel about. My dog, my car, my team, my mates, my girlfriend, boyfriend, town, food, all these feelings. Oh, I love this. Yeah? And imagine after hearing the Maha Mantra and the association of the devotees, your heart is able to feel something for the deities, for Krishna, for Guru, for the Vaishnavas, for the service. Your heart changes. That's the main thing. So why does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come? To feel something for Krishna. And we read Chaitanya Caritamrita with that intention. And something that I learned in reading Prabhupada's books and trying to comprehend the glory of what Prabhupada has given us, one of the simple techniques is to analyze the title of the chapters, the title of the book. For example, this book is called Caitanya Caritamrita. So what does Amrita mean? We have one Amrita Mate somewhere, right? Amrita means nectar. Yes, that's one translation. Any other? Amrita means life force. Chaitanya Prabhupada says Chaitanya means that life force. Amrita means etymologically, when you means, you said something? No? Essence, yeah, also nectar, essence. Amrita is the combination of two words. Mrita, which means death. And A in Sanskrit means no, or the negation of. So it's no death. Or eternal. Amrita, like that. So we may say the nectarian, eternal character. Charita means character. Chara. Like you have achar, which is behavior, and prachar, others. So achar and prachar. So this Chaitanya Caritamrita refers to the nectarian, eternal, transcendental character, behavior of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's not different than Krishna, who came to experience the highest love of Krishna's devotees, Srimati Radharani here, for the Lord Himself. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay? So when we come to class, we learn different things. We learn about so many things. History, cosmology, this, that, the other. But Chaitanya Caritamrita is the book that we read. We read to learn how to feel. Boshun. We learn how to feel. Because no one else feels better and more than the Lord Himself. Do we agree on that? No one feels better than the Lord Himself. We all feel, right? We all have, some feelings. As I was saying, before, I love my dog, I love my cat, I love my music, my rock and roll, my surfboard. But now we have some attachment, some love or beginning of that for Guru, Prabhupada, for the devotees, Prasadam, and other things. Right? So we all feel, but the Lord feels the best. And therefore He comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to show us how to feel. In the Bhagavad Gita, talks about feeling are there. Who remembers the chapters? The Chaturslokis are in chapter 10. And then the contract, remember? The contract, what's the chapter? Who remembers? Kirtan? Remember? No? 12. When you want to sign the contract with Krishna, Krishna offers you a job in chapter 3. Come and work for me. And then he likes the offer. I say, I sign. How's the contract name? Devotional service. You work for me. Devotional service. And at the end, in chapter 18, he says, if you really want to be a dear devotee for me, help others, basically. Achar is what we do with ourselves. Prachar is what we do for others. So the whole Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, what is best for me? And in the Bhagavatam, the sages ask, what is best for everyone? So these are 2 points or 2 angles. In other words, what is most beneficial for ourselves and for others. Right? So, Chaitanya Caritamrita is how's that word? Krishna is exemplifying what Krishna speaks in the Gita and what it is explained in the Bhagavatam. Krishna himself says, no. Give it to me, I'll do it. Remember when we were little and then you're learning how to write the ABC, remember? You know how to write ABC? 1, 2, yes, And then you practice like this, right? And you do 100 times little circles and then stick, this way, that way. And then you, forever and ever, you keep on doing it until you learn. But sometimes you do it wrongly. It happens. And then mother comes or father comes and says, no. And then they grab your hand and then they do it like this. This is how you do it. And they do it beautifully. And you think, oh, this is some kind of magic. How can they write so nicely? Right? Like that. So in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and then he shows us, no, this is how you do it. And you do many things. But most importantly, the essence of Chaitanya Caritamrita, again, Amrita means essence, it's true, eternal essence, is how to feel. And that is the most important thing. This world is moved by how we feel, our sentiments and emotions. I mean, we may look all tough and practical and technical and whatever, but at the end of the day, we are driven by this force, feelings and emotions and attitudes to whoever it is. So in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to show us the way how to feel for Krishna. We may talk about God, we may talk even about love of God, but unless you apply it in your heart, then there's no point, right? It's just theory, right? I love my kid, but I never feed him. Do you get fed every day? Do you get your food every day? Yes or no? Yes. Right? I love my daughter, but I never feed her. Right? What kind of love is that? It's just lip service. Yeah? You're nicely dressed and everything. And you're carried around by your parents. So in the same way, Krishna comes to show us that this is love. This is how we feel. And it's not an easy thing. It's a process. In one sense, it's not easy. Why? Because we're so addicted to feeling for other things. Right? My car, my dog, all those things. And then what happens if you keep feeling like that? Because feeling is actually the consequence of your thinking. That's what it is. You think, and then you start feeling, and you behave in a certain way. And if we carry on like that, at the time of death, what do you think we're going to think of? Where's my cat? Where's my dog? And according to the Bhagavad Gita, guess what body or type of body you will get at the time of rebirth, right? You see those cute dogs around, or cats, right? Very obedient, right? So we have to be careful. Whom do we give our heart to? Right? That's why we have these beautiful deities here. Because the deities Prabhupada explains, gives us the chance to practice our feeling. Right? And you see the devotees, how beautiful. Every single day, they bathe the deities, they feed the deities, they decorate the deities, they worship the deities. And that's why when we come, we offer obeisance, not only to the deities, but to the devotees who looked after the deities. Correct? Right? So that's the attitude. We pay obeisance, we give some money, we do some seva for them, although you may not feel like. Right? Sometimes when you take medicine, right, the doctor says, take 3 times after food, water, this, that, the other. Right? And then you take it. But some days you think, I'm tired of taking it. I've been taking it for 10 days, 3 times a day. I don't want to take it. But you have to take it. In order for the medicine to be activated, you have to take it. Right? If you don't take it, you don't get cured. Is that correct? That's a simple logic. So in the same way, this process of bhakti, the example is given just like you may have a drop of water. Sometimes things are leaking like that. The drop of water doesn't have much strength. And sometimes when that leakage falls onto a stone is very hard, very hard. But if you go to near the ocean, the beach like that, sometimes you see that there are some stones or rocks are higher, and then the lower stones, they have holes. And you know why those holes are there? Because the drop of water kept dropping there for years and years and years and years, every single day, and then it creates a hole. So in the same way, it is explained that if our heart continues to follow the process of bhakti, and that is that every day we should practice, let me feel something when I chant, or when I read, or when I cook, or when I clean, or when I talk, and that is what changes our heart. And that is why prasadam tastes so good, right? Because there is something there, right? Like that. I still remember things that my grandma or great-grandma used to cook for us. She used to do the milk in a certain way. Until today, sometimes I long for those flavors, because they will do it and they force me to eat it, to drink it hot and properly, and don't stand up and go and play while I was drinking my milk. You have to sit and drink your milk. And it felt so sheltered. I remember it was a little thing, felt so sheltered. And sometimes the smell I remember it's their love. So in the same way, if we can do things with that feeling, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us, then we have hope. And of course we don't have much time, we have to stop now. But I was giving a class, and Srila Virabahu Prabhu was a spiritual master. And he was giving a class, and he was explaining these points about feeling. The most important thing in our life is our feeling, and we should spiritualize our feeling. And he recommends something. If you want to know the essence of Chaitanya Caritamrita, right? I've never had this experience. I heard a class 2-3 days ago. He said, read the concluding words. You go to Chaitanya Caritamrita, first buy it if you don't have it. And it's not online, I don't think it is. It might be. But in the concluding words, Prabhupada pours his heart out and explains the reason why he wrote the Chaitanya Caritamrita. To give people of this world the opportunity for us to taste, that love of Krishna that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced for the Supreme Person. And he did it out of love for his spiritual master, right? And he says that out of love, his disciples, Srila Prabhupada's disciples, have done this book to please him. And he did this book, he wrote this book to please his guru. And his guru, like that, all the way up to Krishna. Why? Because they were able to feel something for the Supreme Lord. Right? So that's the essence of Caitanya Caritamrita, that we are able to develop this sentiment. Otherwise, it is explained, like we were saying the other day, that you can spend years and years of your life, births and births after birth, without being able to attain the goal of this process, which is Krishna Prema. Right? So we are here for that. We're not here for the socializing aspect of it, for the healthy food, vegetarian, and whatever. We're here because there is some bhakti. Yeah? There is bhakti in this. I mean, this is a beautiful thing, but I remember being in temples or in projects or jatras were not as beautiful. I remember pioneering in the 80s in Bangkok, smell this way, prostitutes in the corner, and noise everywhere. Bangkok is very intense, but I remember we had deities of Jagannath, and we had kirtan every so often, and we were going Harinam, Prem Vikas and others, and the gurus will come, my Guru Maharaj, Apita Maharaj, Kavichandra Maharaj, and a few others will come. We'll have ecstatic kirtans, but the place was horrible, surrounded by demoniac neighbors, eating all kinds of stuff. I don't even want to describe them here. The smell is so terrible. Alcohol and everything, it's just intense. But I remember we had these kirtans running up and down and sitting for class and hearing Bhagavatam, Caitanya Bhagavad Gita, playing the bhajans. It was so ecstatic that we were elsewhere. We were not in Bangkok, one of the most degraded, according to Bhanu Swami, places on earth. But we were, just because we were hearing and we were able to feel something. For Lord Jagannath, Sadbhuj, we had Gornitai, like that. Okay, so we stop here, and this is the reason, I wanted to add, this is the reason why Advaita Acharya was jumping up and down when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. And he was grabbing Haridas Thakur and making him dance, because they were so happy. Now Chaitanya is here. Now things will change. And that's the idea. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to change the face of this world. And that's why the Acharyas, that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur started sending this book. He sent it to Canada, and he sent it to other universities of the world. A recent finding, I don't know how recent, I have heard that he also sent it to Germany, to one university in Germany. Right? The same package he sent it to Canada, that the devotees in Canada found and that they showed to Prabhupada, right? The same book, he sent it to Germany in 1896, of all years, right? So they came for that reason. Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. They came to develop Krishna consciousness in this world and change, turn it into Vaikuntha, as Prabhupada explained. So, there's any points, any questions, anything that you want to raise or corrections, anything? Prabhu? Yeah? Yep.
Mentions here in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the three worlds became joyful. What's the evidence of that?
What are the three worlds?
What's the evidence of that? Those three worlds became joyful.
Right. I heard that question several times. The evidence is something, one, that we cannot see, or we cannot see it just yet. They could see it because they're Trikalagya and all that. So they could see that this will be happening. That was 500 plus years ago. And they, at that time, no one was here, for example, just to make it practical, local. But, now they are chanting the holy names there. All the entities are being purified, the insects, the reptiles, whatever, the trees are being purified by the chanting of the devotees. It wasn't happening then, but it's happening now. But they already, because they could see, because the predictions in the Puranas state that this will happen. The world will change by the chanting of your holy names. They could see that. So the evidence will be there, visibly for us, but for them, for the acharyas, those are predictions, as they call, that they could see. But the evidence, it's happening in front of our eyes in a slow motion. Right? In a slow motion. And we can see, if we go, Prabhupada went there, he made one devotee in Russia. One devotee. Right? There's a story when the first Chinese devotees brought to him. I met him, Jasomati Sutta, I think his name. So who could have said? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, 2 or 3 times, he predicted the Americans, the Russians, the Prussians, the Germans, the British will be chanting. So at that time somebody may have asked, even 100 years after he said it, he says, what is the evidence? Not just yet. And as Prabhupada said also, when somebody sat next to him in America somewhere, and then he says, oh, I'm here, and many devotees have a big movement. And the person asked, where are they? In other words, we can say, where's the evidence? Where are the photos? And then he said, only time separates us, or something like that. So the evidence is there. We, in my case, cannot see it. Sometimes I scratch my head and I think, how is it that Krishna consciousness is going to enter in every home, in every town and village? But it's happening. It's happening. It's manifesting. The evidence is there, but it's manifesting slowly. Now, if one becomes Trikalagya, we may see it more and more. But it's a matter of time. The evidence is there. It's being manifested more and more, I think. That's my, Mate?
Thank you, Prabhu. Just part of that, what Prabhu said, that there is the evidence. I think in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada does say that the demigods are lining up to take birth here. So my question is, is it also saying that even Prabhupada said the Indians are running away to the west,
and I will catch them.
The devotees are actually creating an environment. So that's one aspect, and they're creating an environment where devotees can take birth into that purified atmosphere.
True. So many things we cannot see. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, is it Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What's it? Yeah. That my devotees will go to far away land. Right? He says that. My devotees will go to far away lands. And then he says, but I will catch them. That's the thing. Indians are going everywhere, And then they come from traditions, families, ancestors, devotees of devotees, Sri Sampradayas and other Sampradayas. And then they're going to America, to the UK. And then what happens? Devotees go there, and then they catch them. I mean, we're not Indian, we're not American, it's just external. But yeah, that's an example of the evidence, So many things are there. We just have to wait and see, The next is like, they have these movies, Spider-Man 1, Rocky 2, this one, that, So these happened in the 70s with Prabhupada. And then more happened in the 80s and 90s and the 2020. And as long as we are here, we will see more and more this developing. I never thought it's going to be... I was there in Mayapur when the first group of Russians came in 1990. There was a bus of around 100 of them. Maybe not that many. Two buses maybe. So we went from Mayapur to Calcutta to receive them. Right? Every time I tell this story to the Russian devotees, they, So the first batch that was able to come to Mayapur, I was there. And I remember that moment. We were like, and the senior devotees were giving the lectures and reading the predictions from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, from Prabhupada, from the Shastras. And we were seeing them, and they were coming down, and they were like Martians, like a spaceship, coming down. And I remember, and they were all garland, and they were giving, I think some of them, as a gift, they were giving little cartels, and they were like, shaved up, brahmachari, all nice, So the prediction was given over, 150 years or so by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it was happening. It's happening. And then now Mayapur is full of Russians, right? In every shop that you go, there will be the prices in Russian, correct? And then the Africans and the Chinese, it's happening. Latins are always there, so it's happening. So the predictions are there, and the evidence is manifested. Like they say, just coming. Where's the evidence? Just coming. Like they say in India, just coming from. A few minutes only, a few years only. And that's why Advaita Acharya was so ecstatic, because he knew it's happening, it's coming, yeah. And yes, many things we don't see. I remember when I arrived in Mayapur, and the first few times, I think, that we were crossing the Ganga, I was with one devotee, an Italian devotee, and the crossing cost 10 paisa, 5 or 10 paisa, crossing from Mayapur to Navadvip. So, but this guy was charging me 1 rupee. I mean, I look Indian, I know, but we were talking in, Spanish and English, like that. He spoke a little Spanish. So then he was charging me 1 rupee, and he was about to push me off the boat if I didn't pay 1 rupee. And everyone was paying 10 paisa. So I got so enraged. And I started, I don't know, swearing, but I was saying, these guys, like thieves, the whole thing, And I remember, beautiful afternoon, sunny, about to cross the Ganga. And he told me, hey, stop it. You don't know who you're talking to. These people in the Caitanya Caritamrita is described that some devatas, they come to the land of Mayapur. They hide their arms and whatever else. They come with their wives and their friends and relatives or whatever. They hide their features, and then they act like humble villagers just to be able to see what Lord Chaitanya has created. He says, don't talk like that, You may be talking to, And I remember he was very intense. And I said, oh, yeah. And then he went and talked. He says, no. Like that. So there are many things we don't see. That's for sure. So. But anyway, we're here and we are lucky. We're very, very lucky to be here. And then after 10 years, we will realize, oh, I was so lucky to be, Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Gaura ki, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki, Nithai Gaura Premanandi Hari.